Welcome to Talking in Stations. This is Matterall on July 19th. Today, we are going to talk about, well, we call this the leaders in their own words. We keep trying to find a different name for it, but basically, we take the, in this case, Fireside Chat, we listen to it, and we look for clues on what's really going on. And we do this with the town hall from PAPI side, whether it be test or horde, or we'll do it from announcements from NC. We'll do it from whatever group we can find audio from. It turns out that everything that Imperium does on the weekend gets published, and so their Fireside Chat, which is their segment for it's their messaging to their group. They know it gets out, but they message it to their group. So it's what they're saying to their people. And if I'm not mistaken, there's usually 3 meetings over the weekend. The first one will be high-level people. The second one will be like, and by high level, I mean directors and all that kind of stuff. And then there's one with all of the people assembled in the this talk space. I think it's Mumble. And that's all the members of the Imperium. And then the third one would be, if you want to call it part of their messaging, is a show that they do for the public called the Meta Show, which they publish on Imperium News channel of Twitch. So that's their 3 layers of messaging that they do every week, or try to do every week. And this one here is, we don't mess with the Meta Show because that's a performance for public. Usually it's not anything new or revelatory there that's not in Fireside. So Fireside is what the line members would be hearing, and we'll be listening to that for the Imperium side. But first, today turns out to be a really busy day for news. There's a lot of stuff that seems to be kind of coming together. Let's take a look at what's going on. The first and probably one of the more important things that we can talk about today is this upcoming changes to Pochven. So we'll bring that up. And that looks like this. It's a message from CCP Paradox. This was put out earlier today. It says, hello everyone. This week Singularity will have a couple of changes to Pochven that we would like to highlight. 1. We're changing how rewards are granted to players for several sites in Pochven, including the observatory flashpoints. The rewards will now be paid similar to how incursions are paid, in that only the fleet that contributes the most damage will receive the payout. Furthermore, only those fleet members inside the site will receive the rewards as long as they are eligible. So the way incursions work is that if you're taking on an incursion and you're destroying it, and another group comes in and starts destroying the same thing you're destroying, but they do more damage, then they actually get all the prize money. And if you'd started it, it doesn't matter. You have to do the most amount of damage, and that's how that works. And what's interesting, a side note here, you have to be on the field to get the payout. So if you're in the fleet but parked somewhere, you don't get the payout. The second point that he brings up, we're also changing which points of interest the roaming NPCs of Pochven will warp to. Draglavian fleets will focus on gates and stations. Edencom NPCs will focus on sites and celestials like planets, and neutral NPCs will be more common around the wormholes. Our aim here is to create areas of strength for players loyal to given factions. And we'll talk about this, I think, tomorrow or during this week. These are changes on the test server. They're not in the game yet, but I think these are going to change up Pochven a little bit. We've already been hearing how this is going to help people who are in Pochven and people who are coming to Pochven. So yeah, some changes there. Interesting stuff. And if you catch this thread, which I'll post now, and I'll put this in the show notes, you can go and comment on this yourself. All right. Next thing is there's a fight in Esoteria. We should have had Shen for this one. So we're going to skip this and give it to him tomorrow so he can talk about it. The rules for the Alliance tournament. That came out today. We were told this was going to happen, and it did. Here it is, rules and registration. Now we've had 2 solid shows on the Imperium. One on Friday, on Alliance tournament. One on Friday, and one again on the weekend report where we covered it. Both shows had people from the Alliance tournament. They were talking about what was going to happen. Now that we have the official rules, there's some interesting stuff in here, but I'm going to leave this for a different show later this week when we can actually copy it. But if you're interested in reading what's in there, supposedly there's some interesting stuff about mercenaries. There's mercenaries. Mercenary teams don't have to be in an alliance, stuff like that. But again, I don't want to comment on it because there's a lot of depth there. All right. So let's wait. One more thing. Alliance tournament key dates. Let's have a look at what that is pointing to. Saturdays in September, TV broadcast open practices. Okay, so September practices. I think the tournament is in November. Yeah. Plenty of time for you to react to that. The second link to Pochven, there was only one link to Pochven, and it was this one here that I put in there. We'll go back just for a second. And the second thing was the NPCs basically are going to be spread around in different places that make more sense for them. So you'll have the Triglavians will be on gates and stations, and Edencom will be on planets and celestials. And then the other NPCs, the neutral ones, they will be near the wormholes. I think those are like drifters, I think. So that it makes more sense. The place just makes more sense. Okay, Alliance Tournament, we just covered that. Now here's the big news coming out of the war zone. Being Delve and the Imperium, again, under siege by PAPI after a year-long war. This is one of the big ones. That link didn't work for, I'm sorry. That link didn't work for AT. Let's get you a better one. Okay. If not, check the show notes. I'm moving on. We'll talk about this, and this will be also featured in the Fireside, as this message that came out yesterday pops up at the same time that the Fireside's being given, so they get to talk about it. And this one comes from Gobbins, but as you'll see, there's more than one message. I'll just read Gobbins's. So this is to Horde, Pandemic Horde. And here it is. War update announcement. We had several talks with other alliance leaders this week and a big coalition meeting yesterday to decide how to proceed. After a lot of discussion, we agreed to a unified plan. There will be a big combined announcement next weekend, July 24th. Be around that day if you can. He says, meanwhile, some fights have broken out. Now, the leader of Fraternity, we're considering this to be posted by him. I haven't confirmed that, but I'm going to assume that it is. And he says it in a different way. He says, everyone, hello, friends. On the 24th, there will be a coordinated announcement for all the major PAPI alliances about our plans for the war. This will be a war-ending move, and more details will come by the 24th. I'm going to personally stream my meetings with other alliance leaders. This is an unprecedented event for this war that will give that Eve will never see again, so please be there if you can. That was written by Noros. So one thing about the way Noros writes, I think he's a little more poetic than the other leaders. When he talks in terms of war, it feels bigger. Again, all the leaders in PAPI and all over the game have different ideas on how to message to their teammates and set expectations. I think what fraternity leader Noros is doing here is he's writing in very big terms and promising a lot. He says, essentially, it's a war-ending move. And he says this unprecedented event. And I think the unprecedented event is the streaming the meetings with other alliance leaders. That's unprecedented. We've never seen that before. I don't know if he's talking about the actual substance of the announcement. I don't think that's what he's talking about. So the idea of having all the leaders stream their announcement is interesting and new. The coordinated announcement will be, this is a war-ending move. Now, you might think that it's some kind of a war-ending moment, but I think what he's saying is this is the beginning of the finale, which isn't really news, considering the siege would be the beginning of the finale, I would assume. But We'll find out more on the 24th. Okay, so there's other stuff going around, but we're going to leave all that stuff on the table for more news later in the week. Right now, because these take so long, we want to go to our audio program and listen in to the Mittani as he talks to the Imperium about where they're at in the war and what is going on. And I will describe, if I can, what I think is actually going on. That's the added value of these things. So here we go. This was recorded Sunday in the Imperium's mumble.
All right, boys and girls, get your bingo cards ready. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes. I will warn everyone in advance that I had to scrap whatever plans I had for the fireside today because of the events of the last 12 hours or so. So, a lot of us pulled a late night shift, and a lot of you have been up since then, our Euros who woke up and joined in. And we'll be talking about that here in a second. Yeah, I want to go ahead and just begin things with a shout out to actually, before I do this, I'm going to wait for people to get here. There's like 1,230 fucking people on our mumble because a bunch of people are in ops and moving things around, and the bad guys, some of them just stood down.
Let me stop there. 1,200. He says that people are busy doing ops. People are getting cleaned up. Expect more people to show up. Now think about that. 1,200. When they did the big announcement about Elms Deep, we call that the big announcement they were going to have. It was a record-breaking moment for them. They had over 2,000 people. So you can see the difference now in population. Now, again, this isn't everybody that's still involved in the war, obviously, but 2,000 down, or 2,000 at, I think, a high watermark, at least on these mumble fireside announcements, down to about 1,200. And let's say it bounces up 200 or 300 more. Who knows? Okay, here you go.
And we're just sort of reviewing things on the chessboard. So worst case scenario, if you miss this because you're on an op and you can't be in multiple channels, we will have it recorded. It does look like it is being recorded right now. So cool deal. I'm going to pause here to read this whining excuse that Horde just pinged. God, they're letting, you know, one of the things, this is just a completely non-fireside commentary, but just like real-time impressions here, is they have, it's like the fall of fucking Berlin in a World War II movie or something. Like it's a situation where you end up with everybody, I don't know, bad World War II analogy, and I don't want to offend any German or anything like that, but I'm basically, it's like
classy move.
It's fucking 14-year-olds with AK-47s in a technical, right? It's like, you know, just the absolute dregs of their fucking command layer, or what's left of it, have been left to try to clean up this mess. It's another good analogy for it. Again, this is just impromptu shit. I'm seeing there's this ping from...
Is it Rip Mumble or Rip Mittens?
I think that was Rip Mumble.
That's one of their FCs. Now what happened here, I think, is they had a disruption in their mumble, or they had a disruption in their communication. So I think they actually cut these things together, I think. But they're having trouble with their communications. And that was FC Apple Pear, I believe.
Okay.
At least in some sectors, the people are coming back on now.
Clearly we're being DDoSed, like legacy was.
Yeah, so...
So that's funny. They're joking that they were DDoSed, which is, as you know, a way of disrupting communications for people. And as Legacy was, because apparently the day before, Legacy wasn't able to get their stuff to work either.
Let me give people an update. If you weren't with us last night, if you're wondering what the hell is going on and why everybody sounds kind of hungover, is we kind of started a party in U.S. time zone yesterday. To be fair, the party had started a little bit before that. And essentially, we just ran those fucks around to the point that they rolled over and cried, and we just kept poking them. And then at some point, their command layer just started bleeding out, at which point we twisted the knife. And then we stayed up until, like, you know, all the way through Saturday Night Swarm. Mind One stayed up and did like an extended overtime battle bard set for us as we were reinforcing the Satya.
M1 is a DJ that plays on Imperium News, and he'll go on to explain it's like a party. But that is one of the things that they do for the Imperium, is they have a guy DJing for them. he wasn't actually part of Goonswarm. I think they actually found him, liked him, and convinced him to come over. And he did come over, and he found a willing audience, and so they've adopted him as part of their war effort, I think. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that story. I haven't talked to him about it, but it's interesting to know that he wasn't actually a Goonswarm EVE Online player. He actually was found and brought in.
Oh, yeah, in T5CI. One of the things I want to point out at the very beginning of things, just as a fuck you to all of our enemies that are listening to the Fireside, you have spent months telling anyone in EVE who will listen that it is impossible to go into 1DQ1 and reinforce structures because of the servers. It is impossible to go into 1DQ1 and reinforce structures because of the fighters, because of the lag, because of this, because of that. Ultimately, the reason why they can't come into 1DQ1 and reinforce structures is because they have little dick energy. And that little dick energy is being directed by a council.
I'm not sure what that means, but these are the areas that are being attacked. Knoll, which is a pivotal, let's actually back out. This has always been a really popular, and it had an original station in it too, a really popular area inside of Delve. We're looking at Delve right now. And this is where the war is happening. And you can see in 1DQ over here in the bottom left is where the Imperium is. You can see their Condi green. God, these colors are not great for you to distinguish the differences. Let me see if I can switch to a bright, and that might make it a little better. Let's have a look. Not that much better, but the bright yellow on the bottom left is the area that the Imperium still holds after this war, after all this time in this war. These areas that are lit up with red around them here are the areas that are being attacked. As you can see, they're on the other side of T5Z and DW. Those are areas that are also key and in control of PAPI. So this is where they're burning places up, in his words, and this is where the activity is that he's talking about. Here you go.
Of lamers. And so what did we do yesterday after we had done a whole bunch of other things that I'm not going to be talking about on the Fireside? I'm not going to spell out all of the things that we did yesterday. I'm going to tell one funny story involving us stealing a hell. And then beyond that, we did stuff. We did things. And then at the end of it, when we went into T5ZI and we reinforced a Satio right under their noses, including some other things, there wasn't a fucking thing they could do about it. And the reason why they couldn't do a fucking thing about it is that we are treating them in the way that you would the prey of a pursued predator. I understand that you guys are expecting a whole bunch of screaming, smug herf today, and we will probably get there. Every day that I say that I'm not going to be in like herfity blurf mode, then at some point the spirit of the whelp gods overtakes me, and there we go.
I don't really know what herfs are, but my assumption is that herfing is like chest beating kind of stuff. And he's saying like, you guys might be expecting me to, be doing a lot of cheering, but you're not going to get that. But who knows, the gods might take over and get me going. So I think that's what he's saying there, lowering expectations. It could be because he's tired. They've been up a long time doing these fleets. And the fleets, I believe, were... he's going to describe the nature of the fleets, but on the map, if anything, I believe they're just shield timers, I think. There's definitely no armor timers. And shield timers can happen at any time, so we don't usually report those. It's like saying somebody drove by your house and threw an egg at it. We're not quite into break-in territory yet, so the police aren't really called out. So anyway, we'll go into that a bit later. Let's go and listen to more of the Mittani talking to the Imperium yesterday on the Fireside Chat.
But right now, essentially, we had timelines for this, right? The rice fields phase. We were laying in plans for the rice fields phase, and we are still officially in the rice fields phase because you guys know the drill by now. The Reconquista will not be televised. It will not be televised. But our timelines are definitely...
For those that are not Americans, the revolution will not be televised was a mantra by... I don't know who started it, but it was definitely like, the revolution of the young people won't be televised. And I think it might have even been a hip hop thing that happened in the 90s or late 80s. So that's where that comes from.
getting aggressively accelerated after what we saw last night. Holy shit. Our plan was simple. We saw weakness and we were going to push these nerds as hard as we could push them before they pushed us back, right? We wanted to see, what is their ability to resist. And so we pushed, and then we pushed a little bit more, and we pushed a little bit more, and then next thing you know, you just like, okay, well, we'll just reinforce your shit in T5ZI. Not the Keepstar. That has not changed, guys. Again, T5ZI Keepstar, and I want you guys to understand this, and I think that now that you've seen what we've been pulling off here, you can see that we weren't full of shit, not like you guys were doubting us, but the grand strategy that we believed in is working and appears to have worked, and that therefore these people are getting broken right next door to us. This is why I love the T5Z Keepstar. It's one of the biggest strategic overreaches and one of the biggest strategic fuck-ups in the history of EVE Online, and possibly in the history of online gaming.
Well, that's a huge claim. Let's take a look at that. What's he talking about? What could be such a big error? And I'll do this part in front of you here, bringing up .lan again. Let's go back to Delve. I'm taking it a little slower because we have more time since we're only doing one. And these are usually a half hour long. So the Reconquista, by the way, as long as I'm going over to T5Z and 1DQ area, is also a play on, so the Reconquista is a play on the Reconquista, which is Spanish for the taking back of Christian Spain from the Moors that had been there 800 years. So that's what that comes from. He's called it a Reconquista or something. And will not be televised again. We just learned this, or I did, a Gil Scott Heron track. I hope that's right, because I'm not 100% sure, but that sounds right. I think it was. Okay, so here's T5Z. You can see it in the top left. I'll go in close. That's as good as I can get it right there. And in the beginning of this, not the beginning of this war, in the middle of the war, when PAPI was able to break into this region that was pretty much a citadel region for Goon Swarm, right away they put up a Keepstar in T5Z, because I believe at the time, you could say that Goon Swarm had just lost a fight. They put down a Keepstar. PAPI put down a Keepstar inside of NPC Delve. And this was only like a day or two later. You'd expect them to kind of conquer NPC Delve and situate themselves and all that, but that's not what PAPI did. PAPI put a Keepstar right in front of 1DQ, which is the capital system. And that was a big, bold move to say, boom, we're outside your gates. We're not going to just break into your region. We're coming to your house, and now we're like in your house. And so they put up a Keepstar there, and they said everybody moves to that Keepstar. So it's a huge movement in the next few days to T5Z. And then from that place, they essentially conquered all of Delve. And I don't know what the significance strategically is for that. I think it cuts off everything behind it, if we want to look. It cuts all this stuff off, but you have jump capability, so you can jump from the northern part of Delve down to 1DQ, so that's not a huge thing. I think for subcapitals, it's a big problem, because now they have to go through T5Z in order to go and compete for all of Fountain, for all of this area here where M2 Tech XFE is, and the rest of it, really. You have to, it kind of cuts you off and puts you into this little area. So strategically, Matani is saying that was a terrible move. Maybe one of the worst moves they could have made, because that's their fortified capital. You're never getting into that. So why would you put yourself on the other side of the gate? I don't understand the logic of it from his perspective. I kind of see the logic of it from PAPI's perspective, because it cuts off the rest of Delve to subcapitals unless you bridge them over and do stuff like that, which happens, but it just makes a little more sense that way. Anyway, but let's hear what he has to say instead of what I have to say.
It is crazy. All right, let me try to get organized after that mumble thing and see if I can give you guys a proper, slightly hungover but kind of satisfied afterglow fireside. Let's see what we. Holy shit, though, guys! Holy fucking shit. Okay, What was the ping that Mumble cut me off from? It wasn't really. So that's a good question here. Kit Guy is asking me what ping I was reading from the Horde guys before I went over here. It's not even really all that interesting. It's in, and I think it's like open access. Just they have these excuses. Like every time that they have an op where it doesn't result in anything, which is pretty much every other op, they have to post an excuse, and the excuse is never, oh well, we undocked and tried to fight and did things. There's always fucking something. There's always an excuse. And that's great. Strategically speaking, big picture, let's zoom all the way back out. What is happening now, and what is the grand scheme of things? Delve has been transformed, as we intended it from the beginning, into a Sarlacc pit for puppies. And at the bottom of that pit are a bunch of goons covered in Cheeto dust operating the fucking wood chipper. But essentially, you can see over the sweep of the last 13 months what we have done. We said floodplains, and the puppies ignored it. We said floodplains, and they're like, oh, it's a lie. Oh, it's Goonie spin. Oh, look, you're losing structures. You know, there was 3,300 of these fuckers on the field a year ago. And what did we do? We traded structures for time. We fought them where we could. We chunked them down where we could. We set up ambushes such that we could ruin them wherever was possible. And we got them down to where they are today. And that is fantastic. It has taken us a long time to get here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but losing 3 regions, a 4th region actually, and keeping the density of your people into one constellation, that might be a plan for winning. I think it's a plan for surviving. I haven't actually, but he's using it to say, hey, that was always the plan. We were always going to fall back and just wood chip them as they could. But I also feel like there was actually more damage. I don't know, if you take structures out of the equation, take all the structures out, 'cause there's like 3,000 to 4,000 structures destroyed in this campaign. What do the ship-to-ship combat numbers look like? I'm not sure they matter if you want to take military objectives as priority. But let's just say you're looking at money, because now money is important. Supplies are important because of the economy being tight as it is. I don't know what the numbers are, but I don't think, I would say they're kind of even. Maybe Imperium wins a little bit or loses a little bit, but I don't think it has been numbers that have really affected PAPI in a significant way, with the exception of M2, which was a devastating blow. But M2, again, wasn't necessarily a strategic victory. It was a technical failure that gave an opportunity for some free points on the board, basically. So let's keep going.
And we now need to understand where the strategy is going to go in the next month plus, right? And so I've got to speak in very general terms, because on Firesides, we don't like to spell out the strategy explicitly, but you guys need to understand that what you are participating in, what you have accomplished thus far, what you are going to be accomplishing is something that has never happened before in the history of online gaming at this scale, right? We're doing some, like, jacking ourselves off about this is all well and good, but like, smug aside, you got to kind of step back and look at this. Nothing like this has happened in the history of the internet, right? Like, there have been wars in EVE Online.
And here he goes into something I think ProGod did a few months ago, which is to basically say, this is historic. You want to be a part of this, show up, be here. Your name's going to be carved into history if you do.
There have been wars in other online games. The scale, the scope, the length of the campaign, the odds stacked against us, nothing like this has ever happened before. And I want you guys to remember this, that, no hubris is one thing, but as we are winning in a fundamentally historic way, I think it's important that you guys recognize the accomplishment of that you have contributed to, the part that you played in that. It was incredibly inspiring for me as the guy in the big chair to see last night, as we were doing our thing, just watching more and more and more of you log on, because we, up until the end, we weren't sending screaming all pings. Like, our enemy was sending, it was insane. Like, they just completely lost their shit. And the reason they lost their shit is that they're letting the children over there run things. All of their adults were around. They had goblins, they had piggles, they had almost everybody who was anybody in the Blue Donut leadership was online yesterday. They were sending pings, they were trying to support people, but they weren't actually doing anything. They left it to like some guy named like Atomic Pancake, Ichimura, Kale Eagle Eyes. Like they sent their also rans. They sent their dregs to defend T5ZI and their shit, while their bosses sat around doing whatever the fuck it was that they were doing. It's good. So I want you guys to keep in mind as we go through this, that is not just another EVE War. I shouldn't have to tell you guys this at all because you've been doing it for a fucking year. But it has taken us a year to get to this point. And while on the one hand, no hubris, this is a genuinely like a big deal. Like there are already history books about EVE Online. You're going to be in the fucking history books. It's going places. Okay. Now, I want you to think like a pursuit predator. You already are a pursuit predator. You're a human being. I don't know if everybody already knows this, but some people might not know that.
I like this. He's talking about humans as pursuit predators. I love that. He's getting into some anthropology here about chasing herds of animals off cliffs with, fire, that kind of stuff. Really cool.
But the way that humans work is we are pursuit predators. Back in the day, you could just run down your prey to the point that they just get exhausted and they lie down and they let you slit their fucking throat. And that is what we are starting to see. The reason why yesterday was so successful is that we just ran them into the ground, full court press all day. Everywhere that they were, we weren't.
By the way, true story, and this is kind of interesting. I think it was China. I was seeing a video where people were put out into an area and they had long sticks and they would bang on the trees. And so every time a sparrow or bird would land, they'd bang on the tree and the bird would leave. And the birds eventually, because there were so many people out banging on trees and not letting the birds land, that they would actually fall down out of the sky from exhaustion, which kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but another little thing. Here you go.
We would distract them with one fleet, and we were in other areas burning things down. And because their command layer has been abandoned to the last holdouts, the 14-year-olds with AK-47s, right, who have never really done this before but are doing the best they can because the adults in the room have abandoned them to run away, we're running those guys around. And we're going to keep doing that. So if you are a blue donut person, hey, Elf Boy, by the way, I know that you love listening to my Firesides, Goblins. I want you to know that it sucks to be you, and it's going to suck more to be you.
All right, little forced laughter there, but I want to point this out. He's saying Elf Boy. I'm not going to bleep that, just like I'm not bleeping his other language. This is what he's saying, so he's responsible for it. But that is a dig based on looks, and it's. I think he explained this on the Pando show recently, so it's not. I think it's based on looks. So basically, he's making fun of the way somebody looks, and I think that's happened. I think I've probably done that too. So I'm not going to totally condemn it and stuff like that. But I just want to point out that's what it is. It's not some kind of secret meme joke that's there before. It's literally. I think he said he looked like a Keebler elf or something, and he's been running with that since then. And here you go.
How you like those fracks, motherfucker? Anyway, yeah, guys, it's just been great. It's been really great. Let's go back on the Pursuit Predator thing. What do? If we have them in one place, we run everywhere around that one place where they're not, and we burn things down. And then when they chase one of our fleets, we're burning things down elsewhere. We just got to run them into the ground. You just fucking exhaust these people. We are more invested in this than they are because obviously their morale is in the gutter. Their morale is in the gutter for good reasons. They have shitty leaders that have made shitty decisions. Those shitty decisions have now been made very public. They're all pointing fingers at each other and dodging responsibility because this is like a game of musical chairs. But when the music stops, some of these puppies are going to get blamed for their failures. And that's the one thing that they cannot stand, which is accountability in a public way. They absolutely cannot handle it. And they can hear that music and they can see the opportunity to fuck off and get away from the accountability that's coming. They can tell.
I'm not sure what he's referring to at all here. Maybe you guys can help me out in chat. Accountability people leaving, hiding out from accountability. All the leaders that have started the war with PAPI, all of them are still here, and they're still visible. You can see some of their pings and stuff. So again, I'm not exactly sure what he's going after here.
They can tell the accountability is coming, and they're running. And so that's why they're sending their worst and their leastest against us, and that is why we are going to exhaust them. And then they will gently fall down the Sarlacc pit into the wood chipper. One of the things that I think was an extremely important takeaway from what the original Sinners guys said on Trash Talk Tuesday, and this was something that was brought up on the Meta Show yesterday, is that when original Sinners had to move, they had a year worth of shit in T5ZI. They had to move between, it was like 9 and 11 trillion, basically some sort of a big number in terms of assets, resources, everything. So many of our enemies have walked away from the fucking video game because we have crushed their spirit, that there is an obscene amount of PUBG hardware all through our space. And as we are in the rice fields phase, still officially in the rice fields phase, think of these as goodie huts. Like a civilization game is like, oh, hey, here we go. Here's a citadel that got abandoned because we broke the PUBG spirits, and now we have all of these goodies to fuel the Reconquista. Not that we're doing that. There was an example of that yesterday. In the midst of all of this, I want to give a shout out specifically to UltraCal. I don't know if you guys...
Before we go on, though, I want to go back to that. He's making some fuzzy logic here. It's not the right way to put it. So when the FC group for the North, for U.S. time zone corporations, for NC. Sorry, I kind of put that all in my head. So when these guys leave and they are able to take out, well, I think they said they took out some trillions, like 11 trillion or something. That's not a sign of how much everybody has there. An FC corporation will have ships that they hand out to people so they can get into fleet. So that's like taking a big chunk of doctrine ships that they have for themselves and have for other people as well. I don't think that you could take that example and say everybody in NC. Has that much money to evacuate. Therefore, we're going to get rich when we destroy every one of these structures. But what I think he's trying to do is interesting, is to say, like, every victory we get if we destroy one of their structures is going to refuel our efforts, and we'll be able to get more equipment, more money, more payoff for you, more loot. To be a pirate, to destroy their civilization, we will get money, and this will grow and grow and grow. I think that tells me that's an interesting idea. The other side of it is, if he sees that as an incentive, then what condition must they be in for that to be something worth talking about? And I like this because it shows you that scarcity is real, all the way down to the empire that was the most wealthy and powerful, that scarcity is a consideration. And it's really nice to see that in this war, because we really hadn't seen it very much. You keep thinking that people have stockpiles in this war and that scarcity is not really affecting them. But now we're seeing that it is affecting them, because the rhetoric of getting rich by destroying other people's stuff has meaning again. And I love that. Okay, here we go.
I've heard this, but he stole, well, we collectively stole, but UltraCal took point on this, and I think he should get the gold stars for it. Stole a hell from a test renter POS in Paragon Sol yesterday. It was just sitting there. It was a POS that was refed, and then a day and a half later, we came back, and that hell was still there. And now it's ours. So there are, essentially, what happens here is that we have brought the entire galaxy to our doorstep. We brought all of our enemies, every single enemy that has hated the Imperium, on our fucking doorstep, right next door.
Interesting. He says, we brought them here. Now, I don't know what he's trying to do there, because on the one hand, they're saying we're victims, everybody's against us, 3-to-1 odds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These guys are attacking us and we weren't doing anything to them. On the other hand, he's saying we brought them here. And so I'm wondering what that judo is about. Why is he trying to recast this as we've brought these guys to you.
Moved right next door to us. They could have stopped at YZ9, but no, they chose to go all the way to T5ZI because they thought they were a bunch of fucking brain geniuses. So they decided to live on the very precipice of the fucking Sarlacc pit. And as a result, all of these motherfuckers that just sort of walked away from the video game because they're mad at CCP or they're upset with Elf Boy's terrible leadership or just whatever reason, all of their shit that they have dragged to shoot goons with over the last year is just conveniently scattered around us to help us take our shit back. So that is why we're doing the Pursuit Predator thing. It is not just that we want to take our shit back and fuck the bad guys over and blah, blah, blah. It's that this whole thing has been, functionally speaking, a trap. And I don't want to say, oh my God, Puppet Master, we planned it this way from the beginning, because I did not plan T5ZI, right?
He's making a little exception here, but he's taking the rule, making the exception, putting that out. But I got to hear that again, because I just caught it this time. I believe he's saying, we brought them here, this is a master plan. So is he doubling down on this whole thing was a trick to bring everybody to our doorstep so that we could bleed them and take their treasure? Because that's pretty bold, but let's hear it.
Has been, functionally speaking, a trap. And I don't want to say, oh my God, Puppet Master, we planned it this way from the beginning, because I did not plan T5ZI. Right. I expected to drag the enemy into a mire. I expected to try to set up sort of a Rourke's drift sort of scenario, strategically speaking, where you're having to fall back and fall back and fall back and fall back and gradually chunk them down. But what's happened is you combine that with the mistakes that the enemy has made themselves, independent of our grand strategy. Yes, we had a grand strategy to delay, to deny, to destroy. Yes, we had, and it worked. It's working great. I have no fucking complaints. We had a plan to try to take shots at the Supercap fleet such that we could try to pull off either Operation Inho or M2. And that worked. Even the stuff that didn't work, that was part of the plan. High fives all around. I expected them to try to get a Keepstar at NPC Delph. They did. YZ9. I figured we would throw everything we had at that. Great. Okay.
I think he's off in the weeds here. But the larger point that he just made was, we brought them here. They're coming at us. We were going to fall back and take them out, basically kite them, shoot them as they're coming at us and weaken them and destroy their super capital fleet and diminish them. And so it was actually an offensive plan in reverse. I think that's what he's trying to say. And that's one way of looking at it, I suppose. Let's see if he puts this all together in a way here. That's the first time I caught that, by the way, let's just hear this.
T5ZI, though, that was just insane, because 1DQ1 is a trap. It's a fucking trap. If you can't take 1DQ1, the absolute worst place to be. Because look what happened last night. One of the things that these guys never considered, we have been fighting on the defensive guys for more than a year now. More than a year. We are officially in the middle of July. We're headed towards month 13 of official hostilities, not even counting the pre-war stuff where we figured out what their plan was and juked them by starting to set up our defenses. But they don't know how to fucking play D. And that's revealed by last night when they were sending 50 plus fucking pings and they couldn't get more than like 200 people in a fleet for 100, like for 50 fucking pings. Like seriously, I've never seen anything like this, guys. One of the reasons I'm a little discombobulated today is just this sort of Eve hangover from last night of just watching these guys flip their shit. There is, and I'm gonna, as I'm sure you're all aware, and I want you guys to know that we think about this upstairs. There is a ratio between the number of pings that you send, the number of people that respond to that ping and get in the fleet that you ask them to, and then the number of kills or the amount of fun that fleet then has, right? And so ideally speaking, from a command perspective, you want to send as few pings as possible to put asses in chairs, and then those guys go have fun, ideally, right? So
let's break that down. So he's saying if you're pinging a lot and people aren't showing up, you're in real trouble, and there's some truth to that. However, you've probably heard how famous Vince Draken is for pinging. He'll ping 40 times for a fleet. because he'll just keep pinging. That's just his style, I think. And I've never seen that really bring more people in than if he probably would have pinged 5 times. But so in that sense, there's not really a ratio between how many times you ping. But both sides will look at pings and saying these guys were pinging hard, which means they were yelling at their guys, come on. This is really important. Come on. And so you can judge the scale of supposed participation by how much people are pinging to a degree. And if it's not working, it tells you that their guys either aren't ready, aren't responding fast, or just don't want to fight anymore. And that's what he's trying to say. These guys, PAPI, pinged like crazy, and they only got 200 people into fleet, is what he says. That's a sign that they can't play defense. And so that's the message here.
You don't want to, the worst case scenario, your ping to fun to participation ratio, the worst thing that they could have possibly done is what they did last night. And they did it repeatedly in multiple time zones. It wasn't just the AUTZ guys that were doing it. I think that they, because these guys that they were left holding the bag, had no experience in dealing with defensive scenarios and no understanding of the need to manage participation in a active and considered way. Like they just let some, like a meth-addled squirrel at their ping bots. And, when one meth-addled squirrel was done mashing the button and screaming to get just a tiny amount of dudes in fleet, then another one would take over, and it just didn't stop. It was crazy. It was great. It's a wonderful sign of weakness. There's blood in the fucking water. We all know it. They know it. It's great. It's fantastic. I have no complaints.
Well, actually, the counter to this is that it was these raids were just what do they call them? I don't know why I don't have things on my mind, but they were shield timers. And the shield timer, the nature of a shield timer is you can attack a structure at any time, right? That was a new rule that was changed to make citadels more vulnerable because when they first came out, you could only attack them during the defensive person's prime time when they were expected to be on. That way a person could defend their structure from the shield to the armor down to the hull, and then you would blow it up if you could beat him all 4 times or 3 times. And CCP was like, okay, no shield timer. You can attack the shield whenever you want. You could do it at midnight. You could do it at 6 a.m., whenever. And so in order to not stress yourself out, you don't really worry about shield timers. Otherwise, they will hit you at midnight, and then they will hit you again at 6 a.m., and you'll be waking up all the time. And then by the time that an actual threat comes on, you're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm too tired. I got real life to do. So what happens is that alliances don't really bother with a shield timer. All it does is say, in 24 hours, you'll have to fight for the armor. And that is when people fight. So that is when people get prepared and say, in 24 hours, we've got to be there. So suit up. So whatever they did last night, I'm sure there are armor timers going on today. From what I've heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, PAPI formed to defend the structures in their armor timer, which is the proper timer, and the Imperium didn't show up. So all the celebrating that's going on here and the partying and the M1 spinning records and all that good stuff is good for morale. It didn't go anywhere as far as I can tell, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong about that. So let's go on.
I mean, what the fuck, dudes? Like, I'm sorry. I came here. I know everybody expected Fireside to be super, super screaming herf, but like, we're doing the thing. All I got to do is hand you some fucking gold stars and say, keep doing the thing. It's not necessarily, and then this is why I want you guys to understand the Pursuit Predator thing, right? At the start of yesterday, they were defending better. Right. And the first few things that we were doing, running around with bombers and doing things that we're not talking about on the Fireside, they stopped us. Right. The first few things they stopped us because we were here. Oh, chase this bomber fleet, chase that bomber fleet, chase these Astros, chase this, chase that. Oh, we've got a Ferox fleet trapped here. We're going to stay in Null and try to mess with Dave Archer, that kind of thing. But what happens is Pursuit predators. You just run them into the fucking ground. You're just willing. All you got to do, guys, like I've been saying for an entire fucking year now, is it's just an hour longer, a day longer, one op more than the other guys. And I'm glad to say that I don't have to convince you guys of this. Like, you've seen it yourselves. You've been out there running them down and exhausting them. And if you participated on yesterday's ops, you got to see what happened as their command layer, their willpower, their endurance, just started to collapse. And once it did collapse, once you saw them like stand down and just give up, then we have free reign. And what do we do when we have free reign, boys and girls? We twist the fucking knife.
All right. First of all, you didn't twist the fucking knife. You don't even have the knife inside the body at the time. I even hate that whole idea of it, right? It's too disgusting for me. But the idea is that he's saying, this is how you win. You tire them out. You pursuit predator them. You run around them until they get so tired. Then you sneak up on them and kill them. And at the same time that you're celebrating the idea that they couldn't get their pants on to get to the fire. I think of firemen putting their pants on and getting to the fire truck and getting to the fire to turn it off. PAPI couldn't do that very well last night. They did, I guess, against the bombers, but the bombers are hard to catch. And in doing all that, you are tiring them out. So if they decide, like, you know what, these are shield timers, let's let them burn or whatever, then that's a strategy against fatigue. That's normally how it plays. Now, to be fair, PAPI has made the same claim about the Imperium. The Imperium will be tired out. And they keep saying, PAPI says, Imperium has to just slip up once. We can slip up over and over again because we're attacking them. But they only need to slip up once, and then we're in, right? That's what PAPI's been saying. And the part about slipping up is we're tiring you out by making this or that or this go on fire. You guys have to make sure that you don't slip up on any of that. And so this fatigue combat works both ways. And I think this is the first time we've seen the Imperium go on an offensive fleet outside of 1DQ to say, like, hey, we can burn up, these systems right behind you, and we can cause some havoc. But again, the money's in the armor timer, and that's what you want to watch as an EVE player, to say, armor timer, who won it? And even then, you don't have it destroyed, but you have that warning shot of, we're breaking through your resistance. And I don't think the Imperium formed for armor timers. So again, this could be just an exercise of excitement.
That is how this goes. Pursuit predator, run them into the ground, exhaust them. It's not going to be every day. I want you to understand, we're not always going to have days.
By the way, this is the defense to that. Now he's saying, like, we're going to chase them around and we're going to scare them, but not every day. So don't tire yourself out. I think that's what he's saying here.
Like yesterday, I don't want to promise that suddenly this is going to be easy. I just want to point to what we did yesterday as a path forward for you to understand how this works at the macro level, which is we fucking run around, pursuit predator them, exhaust them, and then once they're on the ground panting and wheezing and saying, no more, I can't do this, I'm going to go outside and I blame CCP and the servers anyway, Gargoon. Once they've rollen over, then we twist the knife. We do the things we're not going to talk about on the fucking fireside. There are things that we will be doing, the things that we did last night, we will continue doing them. It's good, and I think you guys get it, and I want you all to understand and appreciate how fucking well you're doing.
Before we go on, he says, like, we'll do the things that we're not going to talk about. And he's actually done this before. I think it was YZ9, wherever the boson trap happened. He was doing this little delicious, we have a delicious surprise for you. We have some interesting things for you. So it is probably the case that they have a secret plan, a secret way of using a fleet, maybe heavy-duty blops raids. Something is there that he doesn't want to talk about, but he's just letting them know, we're going to do this. We're going to scramble them around, run away from them, tire them out, and then we're going to do some interesting things. I think that's what he's trying to say. So they probably have some plans.
Because at the end of the day, nobody in the history of online gaming has fought 3-to-1 odds for more than a year in the hardest.
I got to stop because this really irritates me. 3-to-1 is not the case unless you take every renter of all these empires and include them in their empire. And even when we did our spot checks during the heavy duty fighting, it was 2.1 to 2.3 to 1, which is definitely outnumbered. Right now, you just saw a fight yesterday that was actually 1 to 1. Goonswarm, I believe, had 800 and PAPI had like 730. That's about a 1 to 1. So that's where we're at now. But the 3 to 1, fighting like lions against the tide, that's rhetoric. There's no real evidence of that.
Video game, hardest, most complicated, most competitive video game of its kind in history. There will be, I imagine, future bigger wars on the internet, but this is one of the ones that's going to go down in the books as holy shit, what the fuck happened there? And the fact that we are going to win this, I believe we are currently winning. I have always believed in our final victory. It's cool and good. Yeah, and here's the thing. As Contier points out, yesterday wasn't easy but necessary. And this is, again, part of the Pursuit Predator thing. There's fucking 1,330 people on Mumble right now. There's 920 of you here. There are more of you out on ops. And that's fantastic.
Oh, let's look at that. Okay, so 1,200 is what he had collected at the beginning of the Mumble. The Mumble crashed. 900 came back. But there are people out on ops and that sort of thing. Now, I want you to take that number, though, because this is a sign, and you compare it to when they talk about Helm's Deep, which we talked about earlier, which was at the peak of the war, and that was 2,000 people for a big announcement. Granted, it was a big announcement, a big occasion. And so if you take those numbers, and I don't want to exaggerate this, I'm just going to make this point, 2,000 for the peak of the war, about 1,000 now. Of course, people are missing, and we're at kind of a lull stage. So add 50% to that, and you get to 1,500 or something. Regardless of however you want to put this together, the numbers on the Imperium side are lower. The numbers on the PAPI side have got to be lower too. There's no way it's just one side. So I have a feeling that, this is the Mumble PCU that we're talking about. But earlier it was 1,200, and now it's 900. And during, again, a few months ago, it was 2,000. So all this to say that, yes, both groups are suffering fewer members than fighting in this war than were fighting before. And you can see that on the PCU as well. So it's not a big surprise for anybody. But there's just some evidence right there, a little fact point.
Fantastic, right? One of the advantages that we have is this is our fucking homeland, right? This is the motherland. This is Delve, and Delve hungers. And we know that they're not going to be able to kick us out of Delve because they've given up on that and they're pissing and shitting themselves and blaming each other. But you have an advantage.
By the way, they haven't given up on taking Delve. They've said, we're going to take a summer break, do some other things, do some family things. And then now they've said, this is PAPI, that the summer break is still going. They're actually doing a deployment, and CDOT is actually doing a deployment right now, and to focus on that. And so the point is, they haven't given up on 1DQ because obviously the Keepstar is still there. Their supers are still there. Everybody's still there with jump clones. So that's not true. But now we know there's an announcement that's, as we heard earlier, something of a game changer. So who knows if the schedule is going to be accelerated? We'll find out.
We are more motivated than them, and increasingly now we can get parity with our numbers, or sometimes we can outnumber them. So pace yourselves.
He's absolutely
Part of
right.
the whole Pursuit Predator thing is that you understand when you personally can go, okay, I can contribute to this tonight. Okay, I can do a full burn. I can stay up until 5 a.m. running the puppies around because I'm listening to Mind One and it's fucking fantastic, and we're essentially just having a massive party last night. Like, it fucking ruled. But I do want you guys to understand, because I don't want to ask you to just burn yourselves out pointlessly, because that's what our enemies have done. I want you to, in an intelligent and keeping track of your personal burnout, like you've heard me tell you all fucking war. Because again, this isn't new. We've been doing this for more than a year now, guys, right? So, pace yourselves, right? We're going to chase the puppies down marathon style, exhaust them. And if you need to take a break, we've got somebody else. We're just going to make sure that somebody else is also chasing the puppies down, and we'll get this fucking thing done.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you need to take a break, we'll make sure somebody takes your spot and still chasing down. That's an interesting strategy if you can make that work. And that way you can rest guys, bring guys on, back and forth, that sort of thing. I think every side is doing a similar thing, but that bears some looking around to see what the FCs are doing. I imagine he's talking about FCs, but I think maybe he also is talking about players too. I don't know. Again, a good and interesting strategy. He's absolutely right. They have parity now. It's 1-to-1. He just said it. You just saw it on that last battle report. In fact, he said we can even outnumber them now. That's a new admission from him. And I think he's saying like, hey, this is good for us. I think the whole idea of the psychological warfare that you have heard over the months and months and months, that can get really ugly at times, was built to wither away the numbers. Because once you get parity 1-to-1 and you're in defense of structures as opposed to offense, you're going to have a really good chance to survive any kind of a raid. So these are good things for the Imperium that he's pointing out.
Alrighty. I want to take some questions here. I've pretty much herfed the blurfs, and I've given some gold stars to Ultra Cow for that amazing hell heist. Like, that is fucking fantastic. Toe update. I am actually standing up. Thank you, Sky Enzo, for asking about the status of my toe. I am ambulatory, and basically because I babied it for the first few days.
I think he hurt his foot, and I'll just try to cut this out since it's more personal for his guys.
Move my toes around, I guess. What's the deal with Snuffed Out? Any details? That was
Snuffed Out. There was a published report that Snuffed Out was going to join the Imperium. They have been part of the Imperium before, so it's not an outlandish claim. And that rumor came out a few days ago. There was a second rumor that Rote Capel would also join the Imperium, and he's going to address that right here.
What's the deal with Snuffed Out? Any details? That was a troll. I mean, basically, anytime Snuffed Out says something, we smile and nod and say, ooh, whatever. But no, Snuffed Out is not joining the Imperium. If there is a member that's going to be joining the Imperium, I don't like to surprise our guys or our society with like random news drops. So like if somebody's going to be joining the Imperium, you're going to hear about it from me, not because of something on a talk show.
He makes a really good point there that I think is very true, which is if something big is going to happen, you're not going to hear about it from everybody else. You're going to hear about it from me because we're in control of information. And we're not going to surprise you guys. And that's really cool because what you're saying to your guys is you have a strong connection to the center of information, which is me or us. And that's a good sign to send to your guys, right?
I mean, Elitist Ops is welcome back whenever they want, but, it is all good. All right.
Okay, Elitist Ops is a corporation inside of Snuff. They were actually a part of Pandemic Legion. They went I think they went to Snuff, and then they went over to the Imperium during this war, and they actually did some cool stuff at the beginning of the war. But then I don't think they wanted to participate anymore, so they went back to Snuff. And so what he's saying is, Snuff's not joining us, but Elitist Ops, if you guys ever want to come back, you're totally welcome to come back. And I think he actually might describe why Elitist Ops are welcome back. I'm not sure if it's this episode, but we'll see.
Is there a pathway to citizenship for bad guy mainline pilots who are starting to see the writing on the wall? Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of different corporations are recruiting. Karma Fleet is recruiting. Lots of corps are recruiting, and that's just sort of handled at a corp level. There's not like an individual golden ticket kind of thing.
So somebody asked him if people want to switch sides. They did it in a colorful way, but if somebody wants to switch sides from the PAPI side to the Imperium side, who's recruiting for them? And he's explaining that. He says no golden ticket, so you won't get paid to switch sides. You won't get any benefits to switch sides. And I think that's what he's talking about here.
Oh, one of the things, it's cool to have people flip sides, I guess, but I appreciate it when people join us when we're down and out, right? Like the people that joined us a month ago or 2 months ago or before that. I have a lot of respect for people that are like, hey, like these guys, the rest of the galaxy thinks that they're losing, but I can see that this is something I want to be a part of because fuck the man or whatever. And they join us when we're in the fucking trenches and things are not looking so hot. So I'm not saying that anybody that joins us now that they've seen the light is bad. There's certainly going to be some talents. I think that in many cases, the puppies didn't realize how shitty their leadership was until the leaks started coming out and until they started visibly failing, right? Like,
okay, he's going to go into some talk about the leaks that came out, which you've seen probably on Reddit. But I want to point out when he says, like, you're not going to hear about information about Imperium out there in other talk shows or anything, you'll hear it from me, is a direct contrast to what's going on with PAPI right now, where a corporation is leaving and spilling dirty laundry on their way out. And PAPI's own members are finding all this stuff out in a very rude way, out in public where everybody can make fun of it. And it's very selective leaking too, so that it's always a bad thing. And so he's going to go into that and why it's bad and really pin it on leadership, because what he's trying to do is use that bad behavior from the FC Corporation, from NC Dot, to highlight that he wants to wrap that around the neck of the leadership of PAPI. But what he'll try to do, and I think this is interesting, is not wrap it around Vince's neck, right? He's going to wrap it around PAPI's neck, because he wants to really attack Billy and Gobbins and separate Vince from that group. But he can't, because the people that are breaking off are people breaking off from Vince, not from Gobbins, not from Billy. And so it's a really interesting trick that he needs to perform. I don't know if he tries to do it, but if he were to try to do it, that would be very interesting to do. I think rhetorically what I'm saying is their situation is not great for Mittani, because he's not able to just basically say, there it is, these guys are leaving poor leadership, because he's been praising Vince's leadership as contrast to the other guys in PAPI. And the reason he's been doing that is he's trying to negotiate with Vince, and he's trying to flatter him, or maybe he believes all the stuff he says, but to flatter him into like, you can deal with me, right? We're old, we go back a long time in this game. But these other guys, these other allies that you have, they're not worth it. And I have a feeling what you're going to hear Saturday is PAPI basically responding in a unified way to Mittani's message, saying, we're all in and we're all together. So I think that's what you're going to hear on Saturday, but I'm not sure. Now let's hear more of Mittani talking about bad leadership on the PAPI side.
These guys have never been in an organization that was well managed or well led by people that cared about the tribe as a whole, because most of our enemies fundamentally are like pickup guilds, right? Like, what the fuck is Requiem Eternal or Eternal Requiem, right? Like, what the fuck is a Warped Intentions, right? These are pickup guilds, right? That's what they are. And as a result, they don't necessarily know how awful and stupid a Gobbins or a Pro God is compared to what we do over here. So it's up to the corporations, and basically, use your best judgment. All right. You know what? I don't want to go. Oh, wait, hold on. What do we got here? I got an intercept. Sorry. There will be no town hall today. Instead, we will be doing something different. On July 24th, we will be doing a PAPI coalition-wide announcement. Test and Legacy will also be doing a State of the Coalition, all hands on deck, whatever you want to call it. Everyone fucking be there meeting. All their PAPI alliances will be doing their own major alliance meetings. Big things coming. This is, oh, look at this, hot off the presses. In the meantime, goons have just finally kind of come out of the hole these past few days. Expect some more actual fights this week instead of just chasing bombers. When our comms don't crash, they're actually pretty fun. Yeah, their mumble crashed yesterday because they can't manage anything even remotely competently.
Okay. That's ironic, because their mumble Mittani's mumble just crashed too, just a few minutes ago, right? During this thing, their whole mumble crashed. But he's using the opportunity to bash Legacy, why not? But what he's talking about is the first message that comes out. You notice he doesn't take it that seriously. He's just kind of laughing at them and reading it in a funny way. But that came from Pro God Legend or Test, I believe. And so I think it came from him. So that's why he's making the funny voice, and he's reading this because he's just getting it. And he'll get more here.
So yeah, Piggles is pinging out. You guys can see this coming over the wires for those of you that have agents and assets. They're putting on their town halls, but they're telling everybody that July 24th is going to be a big deal. So I don't know, maybe they're going to siege 1DQ1 on July 24th. They're going to get everybody together because they totally believe that they're going to be able to do things. I have no fucking idea. One of the things that's difficult at this phase of the war is it's hard to predict what the enemy is going to do, because the enemy does not have good options, and also they're busy tearing themselves apart. But if they're going to scream to, oh, look, here we go. Gobbins just pinged this too. We have Tevril. I'm reading this shit to you guys live.
I think this is legit. I think he's legitimately surprised that he's getting this right in the middle of his briefing, basically, to his guys. So you could tell by the excitement level he's changing tones. I think everything he's saying here is actually very accurate, and you can tell by the tonality of his voice.
We have several. I'm reading this shit to you guys live. Just ping this out. We've had several talks with other alliance leaders this week and a big coalition meeting yesterday to decide how to proceed. I guess their big coalition meeting yesterday was why we saw all their leadership online, who then did nothing and let the fucking Ichis and Kales and whoever the fuck and the literally who's do their thing. After a lot of discussion, we have Elf Boy.
That is
after a lot of discussion,
that is legitimate discovery. So he is seeing this for the first time, and he delights in it because now he gets to add some characterization that's insulting. So the fact that it's not just anybody, but it's actually goblins, it entices him to rub it in as much as he can. So let's go to that.
After a lot of discussion, we agreed to a unified plan. There will be a big combined announcement next weekend, July 24th. Be around that day if you can. Meanwhile, goons have started counteroffensives. We finally had a couple of big fleet fights in Delve the last days rather than just bombers, so don't miss that action. During the quiet time, Skirmish Fleet continues its work for those that want smaller gang action on the daily. Thank you, Elf Boy, for pinging this in the middle of my fucking fireside so I can just read you and Piggles' dumbass idea out to our fucking troops so they know.
You notice he sounds like a Texan all of a sudden? Did you notice that? So after he emasculates goblins by making a feminine voice and calling him an elf, all of a sudden Matani sounds like a Texan. Listen to that.
So they know to be around July 24th this next weekend because Sappy totally has a plan. Isn't it amazing, guys? They have, after a lot of discussion, a unified plan. Maybe it would have been a good idea to have a fucking unified plan a year ago when you were going to invade Goonswarm. Gee, that might have been wise. You can't make this shit up, guys. You just can't fucking make this shit up.
He just did make it up because if you looked on Reddit, there was a huge leak, I'll find it for you, that showed the plan that PAPI started out with. And it was a heck of a detailed plan. I was reading it thinking like, is this test or is this Imperium? Because this is detailed plans. I'll go and pull that up and even give you the link. But they had a really, really detailed multiple stages with assessments for if things go wrong. It was a big plan. And it was released as a leak just yesterday. So at this point, it's just hyperbole.
Up. A unified plan. Maybe you should have had that before you tried to do and fucking invade us. What the fuck? I see, guys, look, from the big chair, it's all, you got to try to figure out what the bad guys are doing, and you got to make sure you're trying to play 4th dimensional chess or 13th dimensional chess or whatever the fuck, and you're like sitting there going like, what are they going to do? There's options. They could do this, they could do that, they could do the other thing. T5ZI wasn't on my bingo card, and I'll tell you what, trying to tell all of fucking Sappy announcing that they're not doing town halls, because here's the thing, guys, we expected them.
I'm sorry, he's going all over the place, but I wanted to really zero in on this because he's saying basically like, oh, now you have a plan. Well, you didn't ever have a plan. It's probably a good idea to have a plan at the beginning of a campaign, not at the end. So he's doing one of two things. One is he's totally ignoring the fact that the PAPI plan was leaked yesterday, or he actually doesn't know, which is also possible. But it shows like maybe he's got too much on his plate that he doesn't actually know some of the stuff that's leaking on Reddit, which is unlikely. So I think it's a convenient forgot to say, or he never internalized that, oh, look, there's their plan. Because maybe he actually knew it way back then because they probably had access to it. Who knows? But the point is, yeah, PAPI had a plan. That's obvious because it came out yesterday in the form of a leak. But I guess he didn't get that memo. I don't know.
To cancel their town halls because they don't have anything good to say. They were scheduled to have, normally every 2 weeks, we would expect a Goblin's town hall today, and we would have expected a Piggles town hall. So internally, we were kind of guessing what they were going to do. And the gut feeling was that because they got fucking shellacked last night and into this morning, that they would cancel their fucking town halls. And they did. What I did.
can't really go with them there. These were armor timers. You're skirmishing. You are on the offense, which is good. You do have parity. You're 1-to-1 or 800 to 730. That's great. Those are all good signs. But considering that a shellacking, when PAPI's losing Feroxes and Drakes mostly, some Eagles too, that's not the kind of shellacking that you should celebrate this hard, because it's, or maybe you need to, I don't know, but it seems to me like when you killed Munin fleets with the bombers and you took no casualties, that's a shellacking. What happened yesterday was a party, and I think he described it correctly there. But to use that to say like we were wiping them out, I think that's going to roll back on him.
What I did
very soon, because you either may not be able to keep that up, or the numbers just aren't going to stack up to be anything valuable. Remember, battle cruisers are cheaper now than they were before. They're easier to make.
What I didn't expect is that these fucking dumbasses would broadcast that to their people in the middle of our fucking fireside, such that I can literally just read their thing to tell you guys to clear your schedules for July 24th because Sappy's gonna do a thing and they've totally got a plan now. Oh my God, they're idiots. Fuck. I mean, yeah, as Arctura points out, if we want to cancel their July 24th plans, we'll just tell them that Mr. V is going to be FCing against them. Oh my God. I mean, can you just...
Oh, by the way, the guy that threw out that comment is the guy from Ancient Gaming Noob. He's a blogger, nice guy, great guy. You can see him probably at eVegas's. And so he put out this inside joke of, well, it's an outside joke now because it got out. One of the criticisms that the people leaving NC made was that Nitispar from NC was afraid of Mr. V. And so all Imperium needs to do to win is to keep bringing out Mr. V. And so that's what that joke was about is, hey, PAPI, or especially NC is afraid of Mr. V. So just keep bringing him out. Let's go back and listen to that joke.
Oh my God. I mean, can you just think of... if we want to cancel their July 24th plans, we'll just tell them that Mr. V is going to be FCing against them. Oh my God. I mean, can you just think of the failure of leadership? Just think of the failure of leadership. Compare what just happened here. I have been telling you guys every fucking week for a year, and even before the war started, I've been telling you as best I can, right? I do the best job I can. Sometimes fuck-ups happen. Sometimes there are screw-ups. Trying to tell you what to expect in terms of the grand strategy. Trying to tell you the truth, which is we have had plans. We obviously change our plans, we update our plans, we alter our plans one way or another depending upon data as we get it. But obviously we have, we're on defense and we've had a year to do this. So like as we use defense in depth and we come up with more and more and more plans and things to do. But there is a grand strategy that we have been following since before this thing began. And when we knew that when we got the intel that they were going to invade us, the first thing we had to do is decide upon a grand strategy. You have to. The entire fucking galaxy is declaring a blood war on you. So step one is how the fuck do we deal with 152,000 puppies being blue to us, being blue to each other and trying to murder us? How do we do that? So of course we came up with a plan, and then we updated that plan over and over and over again over the last year. And then you see this shit. It's just like,
wait a minute, he just contradicted himself. Like, you're supposed to have a plan at the beginning, and he was saying that PAPI didn't have a plan till now. So I think he's right here. He's correct here in saying that you come up with a plan, it's a strategy. PAPI obviously had one, right? That's what was published in those leaks recently. Has it evolved to deal with the situation after M2 and now in 1DQ? Probably, just like the Imperium's plan has evolved. But I think he's making a lot about nothing here, because clearly PAPI had a plan. And clearly Imperium and Mittani had a plan. They both had plans. It's ridiculous to think that he didn't, or they didn't. And so I don't really know. I think this, again, is to say, look, PAPI's leaders incompetent. Imperium leaders competent. So if you want to work for somebody that knows what they're doing, it's not PAPI, it's Imperium. This is the point of view of Mittani, who's trying to break apart the the player base of PAPI as much as he can to convince them not to follow these guys, to do what the FC Corporation from NC Dot has done, which is to say, there's no good plan here. NC Dot is listening to the wrong guys who are saying, let's siege the castle instead of just ramming the gates. And we don't want any part of that. They don't know what they're doing. We're out. So a lot of the messaging coming from the Imperium right now is to say, you see those guys? They're right. And they're telling you that NC Dot doesn't have a plan. Here's the facts of that. The guys that left for a rivalry, which they lost against the European time zone FCs. They were not being listened to their satisfaction. Their complaints, which you can see on some of the leaked stuff, is pretty much like, let's go in and get these things taken. Let's go in there and attack the Imperium with these numbers. And what Goblin's response to that is, those are not the numbers we're working with. So these FCs, Bob, I think the lead one, I don't even think he was that active since M2. Excuse me, since a little after M2. So he may not realize that we're in a huge lull. So these guys basically got mad and they left for that reason. But on their way out, they decided to make a huge stink and pin it on Vince, who they were mad at for choosing the European FC's plan over theirs. That is not evidence of bad leadership. That's evidence of good leadership. What that's evidence of is that one group of US FCs, are not disciplined enough to leave on good terms.
Watching Elf Boy send a ping, bragging to his people as if it's supposed to reassure them that, hey guys, we had a meeting. Our council of fucking losers got together and agreed that they should have a unified plan. Well, wouldn't that have been nice to have a year back? Gosh, we had a unified plan a year back because you have to. And it's just amazing because this stupid motherfucker has no idea what kind of, he doesn't understand that the ping he's sending out is shooting himself in the balls. He doesn't understand why it's bad leadership. He doesn't understand that a leader's job is to make you feel safe. And I guess Gobbins doesn't really care about that because I think Horde at this point is basically just a Ponzi scheme to launder various sources of...
All right, he's going into this thing he's going to cover in a minute, but before he breaks off, I do want to make this point. One of the interesting things that, well, it's a personal conversation. I don't know if I should bring it up, but he says a leader's job is to make his people feel safe. And he's right. And he's done, and this is Matani. Matani is right, and Matani has done a good job making people feel safe. And he's done that by keeping the herd together. All those capital ships, everything has been falling back to this point where they're now inside 1DQ, a very fortified place, and they're all there. And everybody that's still there pretty much feels safe because they're all together. So having a lot of people with a lot of super capitals in one place, hunker down, does make people feel safe. Because in order for them to die, 1,000 people around them have to die. And that's a lot better than being one of 10 people, because 10 people can be taken out, Titans or no Titans. So in that sense, he's very true. He's very correct. The reason I stopped the tape there is this other thing, and it's just a little anecdote, but I was talking to another leader, and it was about how that leader just wanted to talk to members, and wherever he went to talk to members, people started forming around him. He's kind of a celebrity. And he started thinking well, I just want to talk about the Alliance tournament with these two Alliance tournament guys. And, I don't want a crowd to form around me, but it's very strange. Every time I just talk about anything, people start to form around me. And we talked about it, and it was true that when you're at an event, a player event, and you're a high profile player, that you kind of don't get to enjoy the experience anymore. You owe it to people to have a moment with them. So to talk with them about something they're interested in, because that's like a gift to them. So when people say, oh yeah, I talked to, I'll just use myself. I don't consider myself a celebrity, but hey, I talked to Matterall about a thing at Vegas, and somebody else can say, oh yeah, I was there too. That was pretty cool. You've given them a moment with you that they both identify with. And I think that's something leaders do as well in person. And people who are more or less famous in EVE Online, when you're around other people that are attracted to you because of your reputation or what you've done or who you are, you owe it to them to give them some kind of a moment to have. And Mittani's very good at that. He has an entourage that he travels with, but one of the things that he's done very well is at meetups is that he is shaking hands and talking to people that he wants to, of course. And he's giving people moments. And that's a tiring thing, but I think he's energized by that sort of thing. So that's another thing. So keep people safe, but also give them those moments of contact. And he's doing that here verbally. This entire war, people will be able to all look up at the leader of whatever side you're on and say, that was my leader at that time. And that's who I communed with to get through this whole thing.
Well, we'll get into this in a little bit, but we have a project. I'm not gonna say all of the details about the project, but I am confident enough in saying that the time has come that we are going to let slip the auditors of war. And, everything old is new again. I'd really like to find out about, is the common bean really getting a good deal at that McDonald's that Horde is running? Because there's another thing that Elf Boy did that I think I was planning on talking shit about this on the meta show, and there was just too much shit to talk. Is at the last town hall, Gobbins, you may not remember this because it was a little bit ago and Gobbins is incredibly boring to listen to. At the last town hall, Gobbins was promised.
By the way, that's the second time I've heard that from not just the Mittani. Brisk says it too, who's not part of leadership. He's an F1 guy, but he is a public figure being on the CSM and on the meta show. And he also says, like, oh my God, Gobbins is so boring to listen to. At least we're exciting. And my answer to that is, I don't know if you want exciting out of a leader. You want smart, you want strategic, you want those kinds of things. You don't want, an entertainer necessarily. I'm not saying that that's all that Mittani is, but, these kinds of things that we're dissecting, these words and the messaging that's going on, it's not about entertainment. And if that's your watermark for what makes a good fireside chat, then you're listening for the wrong things. Now here, Mittani goes into, we're going to investigate somehow Horde's coffers, and we're going to reveal that you players are being taken advantage of. Therefore, you should quit Horde. I think that's what he's after here.
Saying that they would fix their SRP situation and then gabloons, people would be able to get SRP within 3 days because we people have rised them, we people have hoarded them, and that hasn't been fixed. They promised it would be fixed and it hasn't been fixed. And I'm kind of beginning to see Horde itself as a sort of a unified renter organization. Like apparently, if you look at the flow of assets and structure there, you have this huge churn of people joining Horde, or at least you used to. They would join Horde because it seemed like an easy generic thing for them to do, and then they invest in the system by selling their things to buyback or market fees or whatever it is. I want to find out. So I have instructed the Goons from Finance team to let slip the financiers of war, and we're going to fucking audit these bitches. We're going to find out what's really going on there. And I suspect what you're going to find is that they are taking in assets and ISK, and that they are most likely misappropriating it by giving it to their blessed beans and their Horde Vanguard and their cool kids or whatever. And meanwhile, they're promising that the beans are going to be getting SRP on the way out. But for some reason, they just can't figure out how to do a reimbursement system. Now, is that a bug? Well, maybe if it was a bug, Gobbins said last time, 3 days, they'd have it fixed. But now they don't. So we're going to audit the fuck out of these bitches, and we're going to see where that fucking ISK is going. And it's going to be people of Horde, because if their strength they want to claim is that they're running this great system that's so wonderful for new players or people that just want to get a taste of fucking nullsec, but it turns out that the entire thing is basically just a fucking scam. It's like a multi-level marketing scheme. It's like Mary Kay for beans. Fuck these people.
I think there's something going on inside Mittani's arsenal where he wants to basically figure out what's going on over in Horde and bring all that to light because there's something terrible going on and new people should not be joining Horde. It's bad for them. They're getting used. That's what he's threatening here with no evidence, but maybe there's something they're digging up that he wants to bring out. On that theme, we have seen many times there is an upper echelon in a group that is treated differently than the members. You've seen that in every group. So that's not unusual. I think even in Imperium, a lot of the FCs that were leaving last year were leaving because they could never get access to broader fleets. They had to kind of use the inexpensive fleets and they wanted to move up. But unless you were part of that elite class of FCs, even in Imperium, you were never going to get there. It felt like a glass ceiling. And I believe it was Thomas Lear. I hope I said that right. I think he left. There was about 3 or 4 FCs that left for that reason. And they left, and when they left, that's exactly the reason they left for. They felt like there was a glass ceiling, and they were never going to be able to get past a certain point unless you were in that club. And so that club is a limited amount of people. And as far as rewards, Imperium has always projected, I don't know if it's true, but they've always projected themselves as a meritocracy that you could, by working hard, you could get advancement and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure that's true. It's really hard to say that's true or not true. Because they all happen to be friends and party with one another and all that. And that's when you kind of get into the larger circles.
All right. So I got to go do some Space Emperor stuff. Let me take a couple more questions, then we're going to call it. As you guys know, thank you, Elf Boy. Thank you, Piggles. Next weekend, big things. Thank God there are so many people listening to this fireside right now, such that I was able to tell you live that our enemies are saying that they're going to do things on July 24th. Big announcement. Maybe this time they have a plan. They say they have a plan.
I felt like a finale.
Here's a question. Are Dictors the unsung heroes of our fleet? I haven't herfed blurfs about the fucking F2 project, but you guys have been doing a damn fucking good job. I really am proud that so many of you have delved into learning how to fly Dictors, Boosters, doing your own thing, learning how to hunt people solo. All of the ways that you have collectively been contributing to the cause above and beyond just fleeting up is one of the reasons why we were able to do what we did last night and what we have been able to do thus far this war. So keep it up. It's fantastic. Other unsung heroes, of course, are the fucking Black Hand. Those poor bastards. I mean, seriously, guys, like the fucking hand agents, the amount of shit that they have to shovel through. I mean, you have seen, for those of you that have like joined the PAPI Assemble Discord, which is open to all, like you see how these people fucking post. It's bad. Kit Guy has an interesting question. We'll get a big old post about all the funny shit that happened in their command layer after all this is said and done and time has passed. Well, we have guesses. I mean, we'll probably reveal everything that we can reveal once the moment we can declassify all the things we want to declassify, we will. But you know, I wouldn't get your hopes up about like having command layer logs or anything like that. Like, and if there were hopes about that, I would absolutely lie about it on a fucking fireside. I wish I wish I could do the stuff that this PAPI leaker is doing. Like, I hope he comes back and drops and gives us some more logs, because I would blow that shit wide open. Like, my move if I had an inside source would be to just fucking.
Okay, and this is interesting because I'm not sure this is true or not, and this is where you can see like the spycraft if it's true. So what he's about to say is these leaks coming out, they're not from us, you know. Our style is that if we get leaks, we just blow them all out and put them all out there at the same time and really use them all up. And I'm not sure which is true, because when Scion dropped leaks on CSM, they dropped a book of leaks. On CO2, they dropped a book of leaks. They did drop everything. But the leaks that are coming out right now seem very beneficial to the Imperium. Not really that beneficial to the purported leakers, which are the Sinners guys, the corporation that left NC Dot. But you don't know who's actually leaking things. It seems strategically like they're built to shame PAPI, not necessarily to shame Vince. The Sinners are mad at Vince. and PAPI, but Vince primarily, especially Nitispar. But there's nothing there really aiming at Nitispar. But what the leaks are showing that are coming out right now are kind of reflective on PAPI in general. So it's hard for me not to think that Imperium has an agenda, it's good timing, they're leaking this stuff out. And if that's the case, if my hunch is correct that it's Goonswarm leaking it, and nobody agrees with me on this, by the way, that I've talked to, if that's the case that it is Goonswarm, then Matani's doing an amazing job right here of playing that down that it's not actually them. And that would be pretty good. If they're actually from him and he's playing it down, this is good acting.
Because I would blow that shit wide open. Like, my move, if I had an inside source, would be to just fucking, we did this in the casino war. I would just drop everything, right? Because that's how I roll. We did that when we got the Bosun dubstep Skype logs last time around, and then those are still posted in Helldump. Like, you can go read them yourselves, all of the enemy's comms. So that's how I roll. And you know what? Here's the thing. Pappy Snowden, if you are listening to this,
he's pulling a Donald Trump, isn't he? Like, hey, Putin, if you want to investigate Hillary, drop those logs. I'll take them. And, I mean, there's so many parallels, but this is just the latest, right?
And you can get me the fucking goods, baby. If you can get me the fucking goods, find a way, right? Find a fucking way. Get in touch with one of our guys, get in touch with me, and we can make some fucking magic happen. I think there's something there, but all right, let's take another question. The social group project, how did that go? We ended up pausing the social group project. I assume you mean by the social group project, you mean us attempting to do randomly selected squads. We learned a lot from the first couple of attempts at that, and then we shelved the project because the war pivoted and we needed to focus more on actually like war stuff. That is something that I'm interested in exploring later in potentially another couple of months. So we fucked up enough things there to learn from our fuck ups, and we are going to dust that shit off when we have an opportunity. It's just not the right time now to, like, I want people running. I want you guys being pursuit predators, and the time for squad formation of new entities will come later. Alrighty. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I should have said this. One last thing. Summer Swarm plug. We got Summer Swarm coming up on August 22nd. If we could get the link for that in Jabber. We also have Eve Vegas. We are monitoring the situation with the Delta variant. Hopefully, everybody who's intending to come.
Always good. Monitor that Delta variant. It's crazy. The explosion in my city of Los Angeles on the west side. It is exploding. Even people who have vaccinations are getting sick. Not badly sick. So the vaccinations are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is to keep you in out of dire straits, and it's working. But the variant is going around anyway. We're up to almost 10% positivity rate on tests. So him saying we're monitoring the situation, Eve Vegas, is very smart and very ethical, and that's great.
We got Summer Storm coming up on August 22nd. If we could get the link for that in Jabber. We also have Eve Vegas. We are monitoring the situation with the Delta variant. Hopefully everybody who's intending to come to any of these goon meets has gotten vaccinated, right? Like, if you're going to come to a fucking goon meet, make sure you've gotten your fucking jabs, right? Don't be that guy. I don't give a shit about any of your thoughts or feelings about it. Otherwise, if you're going to a fucking goon meet, you'd better damn well be vaccinated. But I'm looking forward to it. I really cannot wait to get to party with you nerds again and get life going again.
That's good leadership.
There is a Cleveland meetup next weekend. Speaking of people being vaccinated and hanging out with goons and partying. And yeah, we can just fucking do our thing again. All right, guys, I'm going to shut up here. That is it for the fireside. I'm not going to leave you with a big screaming herfity blurf because I just want you to get back out there and do the fucking pursuit predator thing. Like, just shove them down into the fucking wood chipper. Let's run these guys into the ground. And also, thank you, Gobbins and ProGod, such that we all know the entire Imperium is on alert. Thanks to these idiots doing it during my fucking fireside, the entire Imperium is on alert that July 24th, this next weekend, PAPI is going to do something. And they have a unified plan. They agreed on something. And we'll be there to give them gold stars because I'm sure their plan will be fucking super genius tier. Thank you for coming. Let's get the fuck back out there and run these bitches into the ground.
All right, that is the end. Let's go back to that last part there just for a second. And by the way, I don't want to fight about COVID here, but you're entitled to your opinion. But I would consider you, if you're not vaccinated, somebody who wants to be a petri dish for COVID and store it and give COVID liberty to affect other people. And shame on you for doing that. And I'm not afraid to say that to anybody. So again, your choice, but I'm going to look at it that way. Get vaccinated and do your part to stop a virus, which is not easy to stop in the first place. Enough of that. Go back to Eve for a second. The thing that he says there at the end makes me think that the announcement isn't going to be a very big deal because he's blowing it up and making fun of it. And I'm pretty sure that he probably has access to information on what the announcement's going to be. So my impression is that if he's blowing it up and making fun of it, that he's preparing to make fun of it more, right, after it comes out. So I would not, if it was PAPI leaving the area and saying the war is over, which would be shocking, but it would be a big announcement and live up to the hype, then I think you might see a different voice here. But he's basically making fun of their announcement, you know, this big announcement. And so in doing so, I feel like he's essentially preparing the soil to make fun of it more because the big announcement is a big nothing. So we'll find out on Saturday. Oof. All right, that's it. After about an hour and a half, we went through the fireside. Happened just yesterday, referring to current events that are happening now. And that's got you up to date, at least on the Imperium side. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and watching. And we'll be back tomorrow with more Talking in Stations.